Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we're back on F1 2020 here today, and this is a video that has been highly requested from everyone who watched my recent F1 2020 videos. And you can see we're at Monza, where I currently still hold the fastest time that I did a video on myself in the Ferrari round Monza, and not only because of your requests, but I was highly influenced by Tim Mardat's video around here, because he actually did a controller one, and you can see by my webcam, I am not on the wheel or the pedals or anything. I am on the controller. Finally managed to get it working, because for some reason it just wouldn't work when I plugged it in before, but I've managed to sort that out. And a lot of people said to me they would be very interested for me to actually attempt this myself, because I think Ben did a 19.5, and I have to say, without any disrespect or anything at all, I was actually quite shocked of how quickly he got up to speed with it, and how close he got to my time in like the first or second sector, really. So I really wanted to try this myself. He even fired me a message to ask me to do it, because he already spun off here. And in this video, don't take this as what device, no, 100% this device is quicker than this one or anything at all, because I will be doing more videos when the game officially comes out. Kind of like with the EOS video which I did recently, which I actually will probably take down soon, because I think I just really rambled on quite a bit in that video, and when the game comes out it could be very different to what it is. So I will be making a completely separate video on EOS once the game comes out in a lot more detail, rather than just kind of off script. But in this one here, we'd simply really just go discuss of how I felt with this and where I feel the advantages and disadvantages lie with each device, and it's really down to you guys what you feel is the quicker one, and I'll give my opinion on it as well at the end. But I'll just leave you this footage. You can also see how I use the controller as well, almost losing it here. And if you watch other pad cam videos that I've done in the past, as you can see my hand, it was very hot in my room. That's why I was always rubbing it against my leg to just get the sweat off it, pretty much, because it's just absolutely sweating when I was doing this. But it was a very interesting experience, because I haven't been on the controller competitively since F1 2017. Although I did do a controller video recently on F1 2019 in the wet conditions at China, I haven't done it in the dry or really tried to sweat it out or anything at all. So the first thing I noticed when playing this, and you can see by the delta here, we're hardly down on our first sector PB, where I did an 18.7, and you can see here we're losing it through the corners, and obviously I'm going to be very, very rusty. Immediately I just felt that it was very easy under braking and on the traction. Not easy, but I felt like I was in very good control. And the reason why I felt that way, and this is something I've said so many times in the past, is that the controller has vibration going through the triggers, both on PS4 and on Xbox. And I think having that vibration really enables you to be consistent of where the limit is. And when I mean limit, I mean when you're going to lock up and when you're going to wheel spin. If it vibrates too much, and when it vibrates on a certain amount, then you're going to be very close to that lock up, so you can adjust your braking accordingly. And exactly the same when you're on the throttle. If you're doing too much throttle, it will just vibrate like hell, and then you need to be much smoother with it, like you hit the grass and stuff there as well. So that's what I realized straight away, that it felt very consistent there. But the thing that is a disadvantage that you've just seen just here is just high speed change of direction. And what I mean by that is when you're going through a left-hander, and it quickly changes to right at high speed, due to the steering lock input delay. And you can see again, we always kept on getting some very good traction out of very heavy traction zones. When you're going through a left-hander and it quickly changes high speed to right, you'll be able to see shortly that there is an input delay with the controller. So if you're stopped dead in the middle of a track, so you're not moving at any speed, you're completely stationary, try going from full lock left to full lock right, and you'll see it soon. there is a delay. It does not do it instantly, and the reason why they've done that is because they feel it'd be too sensitive for the average player to do, which I can imagine I could probably agree with, to be honest. So when you're going through a high-speed corner, moving that weight from left to right, it's very, very hard to do that quickly and accurately. And then if you're oversteering, we have to counter steer. It's very hard to recover. So I feel the controller is definitely harder in high-speed corners. It's very difficult to recover. If you make a mistake and you've lost it, it's there's almost no recovery that you can do unless you're quite experienced and you know that you have to put on the brakes and you have to adjust your steering accordingly. Whereas with the wheel, you can always make those micro corrections throughout the corner every single time. So going through into here now, let's see what we can do. Going a bit slower and faster out through this. You can see we're becoming a lot more comfortable. No, we're only on that completed 4 laps, and we're not even that far behind our ghost here. But moving back to the advantages is the braking as well. And again, with the vibration, I just feel you could just be so consistent because you just know exactly when you're going to lock up. And I don't know, it's just a very strange feeling. You just feel very stable when you're doing it, and especially since you're not holding a wheel where you're making those tiny movements. You're pretty much braking directly in a straight line every single time. The back end is not going to step out, and especially on this game where there's a delayed downshift, which again is going to help a lot with stability. I feel you can just be incredibly accurate on the brakes, and also not just because of the vibration, but because you're using your finger, I feel you can just be more accurate as well compared to if you were using your foot. And I know a lot of people might disagree with that, but for me personally, I find when I'm using a setup, or if I'm driving in the wet and dry, if I'm driving in the wet with the wheel versus the controller, I hardly ever lock up with the controller, and I can even brake later. I can just feel I can just trail brake so much more consistently. It really is. But I think you're about to see now what I was talking about with the full lock to left to right. And you can see, if you look at the stick here, so going full lock, it pauses when you hit the middle, the crossover point. There is a brief pause, and that is what I mean by the input delay. Another advantage I would say of the controller when using this is you'll be able to see quite a few times in this video already as I talk over it, is just on traction. And I don't think it's got necessarily an inbuilt traction control or assist. I just feel with the vibration that you get back through your hand or your finger, it just makes it so much more accurate. And you can see, look at the acceleration that we have got coming off this corner, and quite consistently, just because I had that feedback going through my finger, whereas on my right foot, I don't get that feedback. I'm purely relying on it visually, pretty much. Whereas here, I'm actually reacting to the feedback I get back through the game. And if you have that, the more feedback you get, the more consistent and accurate you can be. And I just found in heavy traction zones, and especially in the wet where it's going to be multiplied by 10 times, and you can see we did an 18.9, although invalidated. It was pretty nuts. But you'll be able to see coming off this corner, this is a perfect example. So imagine you hit the input very nicely, and look at the traction that we get off here. And if you nail it, you get that biting point perfect. You'll be able to see just before this first chicane, look how much up we are on this time. We're about half a tenth up going through into here. And the more I used it, the more consistent and confident that I got. But moving on to the disadvantages though, is the steering input. And again, this is mainly through the high speed. Because of that input lag, it's just so hard to be smooth. And if you go offline and you don't get the line right, it's all about speed with the controller. Like with the wheel on the straight, if I turn 360 degrees, my wheel could turn 360 degrees and I would probably spin straight away. But you can see with this traction now, to interrupt, we're almost a tenth up going through into this first chicane now. And that's exactly what can happen if you get it right. You can see 9/100ths of a second up here. That is just absolutely mental. And going through here, getting the steering input very nicely now. And we've actually gone green for the first time. So we're actually ahead of our PB going into the first test mode. Still ahead of it going into the first test mode. Gone back into the red again. Very difficult through here. But through high sweeping corners, I feel the controller is very good. As long as you don't have multiple changes of direction, it feels very good. And we'll allude to that point once I've done this lap. But going through Ascari, this is where I'm going to lose a little bit of time through the left to the right and then back to the left. You can see I've lost time to the wheel through there. But going through Parabolica, I actually feel the controller is probably a better device going through here. So braking very, very hard through here. No, just under 10.5 down. On the exit, we've actually made up a slight bit of time on my PB through here, which then refers me back to the point I was talking about. The disadvantage of the controller is in high speed, multiple changes of direction. The steering lock just can't move quick enough, and quite frankly, you just can't be accurate enough. However, when I was talking about steering input, if you're on a wheel on the straight and you turn 360 degrees of your wheel, it will replicate it in game. Whereas with the controller, if you go full lock to the right whilst you're on a straight, it might move only, if you're going 200 miles an hour, it might move only 10 degrees. It doesn't mimic what you do on the controller. Whereas the slower you go, the more lock that is going to be applied. And this is a disadvantage. If you get your line wrong, it doesn't allow you to recover it. There isn't much flexibility in what you can really do. However, I actually think this is an advantage at the same time, because if you do get the line right, it avoids you from overturning, over-rotating the wheel. So you'll not go oversteer, you'll not go understeer. Whereas with the wheel, although it gives you more freedom and more opportunities and more flexibility in what you can do, you can actually sometimes steer too much, which is something I do myself. I actually steer way too much at times, and that gives me understeer. Whereas a controller, as long as you time the input and you can go full lock into a corner pretty much, it will give you the perfect line. And I think that is a huge advantage that people don't realise at times. But going through into here, I think this is the fastest lap I did. Braking very aggressively, very, very solid, taking a couple of stabs. But if you get that line right, and on the traction, you can see we get the traction so early, and only just going green. Now, there's a lot more potential in this, of course. I think if I played it for the last 2 years, we'd be a lot further up than this. Going purple in the first sector, going slow in, fast out now. Really starting to learn that, and we're not going in the green, but let's see if we can get a better Lesmo. Breaking a straight line, we actually are going green, and then back into the red. Going to here in just one motion through the corner, so not multiple changes of direction. I feel the controller is just as good as the wheel in these corners, in those corners. But in these ones here, like Ascari, this is where you lose time, and you'll be able to see going through into here, we lose time just for those multiple changes of direction. The wheel can just be much smoother through there, and it just has a lot more flexibility. But look, going through the Parabolica, I think we make a little mistake going to it. It's braking quite late, but I think the controller can definitely hang with the wheel in terms of these corners. And we have definitely got a better exit through there before, and that is an 18.831. So less than a tenth away what I did on the PB, where it actually felt quite difficult to do that. So for me, it felt like it was very nice to pick up and play. But the analogy I would use is that the pad is like skiing. It's very easy to pick up and play, but very hard to master. Whereas the wheel is like snowboarding. Very difficult to learn when you first get into, but very easy to master. I hope you enjoyed that comparison, that video. Let me know what you want to see next in future. Thank you so much for the support, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.